my idea of what is art or who are artists has changed quite a bit over the years, before going to either one of the art schools as an undergraduate and a graduate student. And I was always still making films in art school, so it would be like a film and video department within an art school, which is still, definitely lots of DIY, lots of experimentation, and lots of kind of working outside of a commercial system, And so now even I'm teaching at a university in Chicago, again, in a moving image area within an art school, so again, still surrounded both by students and faculty who are in the art world. And I've become actually more cynical and less accepting of what is considered art over the years, and I feel like maybe even when I first started teaching filmmaking in an art school, like I fully embraced this idea of everything is art or can be art, and and now so much I will correct people when I'm at some place representing my school, and they'll say that I'm an artist, and I'm like, I'm not an artist, I'm a filmmaker. That feels like I need to make that kind of distinction. But I think that when what art can do, whether it's something traditional like a painting on a wall, or something that's a sculpture, or something that's installation based, when it can introduce a new way of like thinking about a situation, or a new way of kind of communicating. I really think about art as like at its best a kind of nonverbal language, and a way to describe emotions or psychology, or to describe an experience that otherwise wouldn't be able to be described. Now, I mean, having said that, there's lots of things that are that the art world with a capital A consider art, and I just lots of eye rolling on my end, but and it's one of the reasons that my films have some of the earlier ones were maybe more experimental or more sort of like abstract, and even I had done film and video kind of installations in art galleries and whatnot, and it's just not something that I'm interested in doing anymore. Partially because I love the experience that you can give to someone, even in a short film, where the whole audience comes into the cinema, everybody, the lights go down, everyone watches it together, you experience something together. As opposed to like a film or a video on a loop in a gallery, when there's there's any chance to that someone will just walk in and walk out, and not watch the whole thing, if that's what is supposed to happen. And I'm a horrible consumer of film and video in an art gallery, even if there's a bench to sit on. I'm just like meh, So so I'm sort of like fully committed to sort of not being in the art world, but I also feel good about like my sort of like film making credentials not coming from a commercially driven schooling education. Mm-hmm.
Are you going to prom?
No way.
Why not? Did the Swamp Thing ask someone else?
I'm in a relationship.
How serious? Like up the shirt?
Yeah.
Down the pants?
Yeah.
Have you ever touched it?
Yeah, of course, like all the time. Have you?
Yeah, duh, like constantly.
The recent sort of like the films that I've done in the past couple of years, I've kind of like maybe made an effort to make them more like accessible, and the like having like doubling, then kind of like tripling my audiences, or the people who want to write about the films or want to talk about the films, is rad. So it's not so, and I have not felt like I've compromised anything by saying I want to make these a little bit more like accessible, and a little bit more accessible than the last one. So we actually just got funding in the States from an organization called Creative Capital, and to make a feature. So we, and so I think that, I want it to be a feature that, of course that would be fantastic if it was like theatrically released and all of this kind of stuff, right? And still felt like it was coming from me, but again, didn't turn an audience away, like I'm not smarter than anyone else, or I really want, at the end of the day, I want someone to come up to me and say, I loved that, who's not someone who necessarily has like, a film or an art education or is a critic or a writer, but is just someone, a consumer of films who really just, had some kind of a meaningful experience with something that I've done, right? So because I teach filmmaking, I watch a lot of films, and I sort of like rewatch films, so I love it when I see a new film, like a recent film that also still has that appeal. And so, for instance, I think it's from 2009, but Steve McQueen's Hunger is like just a masterpiece. I just think that that's such a brilliant film, and I mean, it's kind of it's a hard film it's a hard film to get through, so that's not one that my students always like to watch, But I loved watching that film for the first time and just leaving and saying, okay, there's still sort of, that film exists alongside, Transformers 4 or whatever. You know what I mean? There's like still hope for that, for like filmmaking and cinema to be like a real way to sort of to be a transformative medium.
I won't tell anybody what you just told me. You wouldn't want people to think you're a slut.
I'm not a slut.
Oh, so you're a tease.
I'm not a tease.
So if you're not a bitchy tease or a cunty slut, what are you?
Put the focus on doing, I put the focus on like developing your ideas and, making the work. Because like that, there's a real kind of like slow and steady wins the race with me. I just think that there's a lot of people who have like made a first film that maybe that first film did really well, it was really popular, and then they're sort of out of ideas, And so, when my students seem like they're kind of, not making enough, they're not making work fast enough, because they're waiting for a better camera, or they're waiting for, a better film festival to be invited, or to invite their film or something. I just think that's an excuse, to not make the work, So I really believe that you can, if you've got good ideas, like, develop those ideas, figure out like what you are passionate about, what you like. I tell my students all the time, like, make work that's, that you care about. Don't make work that you think I will care about. Don't make work that you think somehow is like, a subject that you think someone else will think is important. Like whatever you are thinking about and passionate about or obsessed about, make work like that. Make that work. And then, whether it's art school or film school, I still believe that you sort of have to kind of know the rules before you break them. So if you kind of, there's craft. I appreciate craft. Really, even if you're shooting on your phone, you know what I mean? Like, get your framing right. You know what I'm saying? Like, figure it out. If you need to use a tripod, use a tripod. If you're, you know what I mean? Like, and then I also tell my students to take some risks. Like I just come from, a place that is, maybe it's like the kind of the younger sort of riot girl in me. I kind of like swimming, in the sort of against the crowd. That's like my nature. So sometimes I don't always understand, like in these really young, my younger college students who sort of like want to kind of play by the rules, I'm like, take some risks, And so those are kind of like what I tell my students. Know the rules before you break them, take some risks, and do work that's important to you.